Get inside. Get what we need.
And this is this week's Closet Classic.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Issues in Burlington. My name is Phil Gallagher, and this is part 2 of a 6-part series, the objective of which is to inform the citizens of Burlington on issues of common interest. Our topic today is traffic in Burlington, and our guests are Selectman Bert Kelly, Chairman of the Planning Board Frank Baxter, Mrs. Jody Hartley from the Business Industrial Traffic Staff, and Mr. Howard Strahan from the Middlesex Turnpike Improvement Association. I'd like to address today's first question to Mr. Kelly and ask what involvement you feel a selectman should have in the upcoming problems of traffic management in Burlington.
Well, Phil, as the executive board in the town of Burlington, the selectmen obviously are very involved. We're responsible for the roads in Burlington, the conditions of the roads, the amount of traffic that is on the roads with input, of course, and help from the planning board, the flow of the traffic. We're responsible for maintaining adequate police protection on the roads, and so obviously the selectmen are very involved in all aspects of traffic in Burlington.
Okay. Is it a unified effort? I know you're involved with a joint committee. I think it includes the planning board.
Yes.
Seems like a large problem to have addressed by just one board that has all the other responsibilities the selectmen have.
It certainly is. At the present time, one of the areas of concern in Burlington is the Middlesex Turnpike. And the Board of Selectmen has appointed a subcommittee to work with the residents of the Middlesex Turnpike Advisory Committee and also Ms. Hadley from the industrial concerns in Burlington, and we're all working together, and of course all of the things that we propose or suggest pretty much are run by the planning board and Mr. Baxter.
There's been talk about a Leahy addition, in addition to the Leahy Clinic. How do you feel that that's going to affect the area up there? An already problem-filled area.
With respect to traffic, it's obviously they're requesting 200 beds, I believe, an additional 150 or 200 beds. The figures that they have given the state, Leahy Clinic, is that they propose that there will be in excess of 900 more cars on the Mall Road, using the Mall Road, than presently use that. Those figures, I'm not quite sure how accurate, but they use a formula based on the amount of traffic that is there now or that their hospital generates. The town of Burlington has not conducted their own study as to how much more traffic is going to be generated, because we feel at this time it may be a little premature. We don't know, first of all, if Leahy Clinic, their proposed addition is going to be approved by the state and ultimately by the town, and to do a traffic study now, which is costly, and not only would be inaccurate in terms of 3 or 4 years from now, but it may be a waste of money if ultimately the expansion doesn't go through.
Mm-hmm. Last year at the town meeting, the membership approved a stabilization fund. Are the selectmen going to propose any road and traffic improvements out of that fund?
Out of the fund itself, no. The selectmen at the next town meeting are proposing approximately $75,000 in road improvements in the town of Burlington. No major improvements can be done, obviously, for $75,000, but this is more or less a maintenance type item. We raised through taxation, but nothing from the stabilization fund.
There's been some talk about repaving of Route 3, which is Route 3A, excuse me, which is a state-run road. Is there going to be any work, number one, and at what cost to Burlington?
We were advised, or the Board of Selectmen was advised approximately 3 or 4 weeks ago that the state would entertain paying for the resurfacing of Cambridge Street from the Woburn line to the Billerica line. This should not be construed as reconstructing Cambridge Street. We all know that it's in need of reconstruction. The state said that there just isn't the money available. What they will do is pay for the resurfacing of Cambridge Street, which will help. That will also include raising the manholes and catch basins. And if you've driven Cambridge Street this past winter, you know in some areas it should be 2 lanes going north at 4 o'clock. Have been cut down to 1 because all the people have found the lowered or dropped manholes and catch basins. So it's a problem. The cost to Burlington for that will be nothing. However, the state also advised us, while they're willing to pay for the resurfacing of Cambridge Street, they do not at the present time have the engineering facilities available to engineer the resurfacing project. We're now looking into that, so to have our own engineering department do it. If they approve that, which we're waiting for now, their approval to have our own people do it, yes, there could be some cost to the town of Burlington.
Well, people that are already in the budget, nothing else, no outside expenditure.
It would be our engineering department in Burlington,
right? In last week's segment, we had talked about access to the landlocked land relative to water. What about access to the landlocked land relative to traffic?
You're talking about the Middlesex Turnpike.
Right, excuse me, over there on the, I guess, the western or the eastern side of Route 3.
Mm-hmm. There are only 2 ways that we know of where people could have access to the landlocked land. One of them is from a small parcel of land owned, I believe, by RCA and possibly Nordblom that goes off of the Middlesex Turnpike near the RCA driveway. The other way would be from Route 3. Neither one of these roads obviously are constructed yet. Getting access to the landlocked land from the Middlesex Turnpike, I would have to say, is probably very remote. I don't think, first of all, that the planning board, the Board of Selectmen, or anybody else in town would approve something like that because of the situation that we already have on the Middlesex Turnpike. If a private developer, I suppose, was willing to pay for the ramps and the widening of Route 3 to get to the landlocked land, and the state then approved it, then I think that's a possibility. But other than that, I don't see any way that land would be opened up.
Well, it is certainly a possibility. The court case could be one, getting access to the land as a result of the state cutting off access to the land with the highways.
Well, the state, I don't think, is willing, or there's been no indication that they're willing to do anything to free up that landlocked land. Like I say, if some private developer wants to come in and pay for the construction of ramps, on and off ramps, and whatever other things are going to have to be done to Route 3 to make them accessible, the state may then entertain that.
I'd like to switch over to Mr. Baxter now. You have a lot of experience with the planning board. I guess this is your 4th year as chairman?
4th year as chairman, my 19th year on the board.
Okay, and I guess you're the right person to ask the following questions. Can you identify for us the locations of what you consider the major traffic problems? I'm sure we're all aware of them, but from the planning board standpoint, what exactly, by prioritize them?
Well, generally, they break themselves down into 2 areas. One is the residential town portion, and the main stem being Route 3A, and the other would be the industrial area and the ability of the town streets surrounding the industrial area to get the traffic from the commercial buildings and retail centers from Route 128 and Route 3 into those buildings and back out again at night. Those are the 2 principal problems that we have now. The residential town portion and the 3A portion of the problem was created by the way the town developed. It developed piecemeal in the early 50s. There's a great lack of connecting streets going east, west, and north and south through the residential portion of the town. So practically any trip that is made requires the resident to come onto Route 3A and go north and south to some extent and contribute to the heavy load of traffic that it carries. And as you previously discussed with Bert, Route 3A is a state road. we have limited powers to do anything with the state road with regard to either reconstruction or opening or closing of curb cuts and whatever. So the solution to that problem is one that requires a cooperative approach with the state, and also it requires money. And at the present time, and with the situation with the residential community and 2.5, why there doesn't seem to be any inclination for the town to spend money on major construction of streets. We have in the past 3 or 4 years, I think, proposed with the selectmen a reconstruction of the intersection of Skilton Lane and Route 3A, which is one of the major critical points, a very dangerous intersection. The state was willing to come in and reconstruct it, contribute most of the money, $150,000 to signalizing that intersection. And we collectively, the selectmen and the planning board, we were unable to get an approval from the town meeting for the funds that the town needed to spend for land taking. So that's a problem, and it's something that we've tried to do something about, but we have a limited input to it. As far as the industrial and commercial areas, the planning board for the last 5 years has had site plan approval, and we have attempted with each new project that comes in to mitigate the impact of the traffic that they were bringing in by requiring both on-site and off-site improvements of the streets in that area. We've been successful in some areas, but the program moves slowly because it's been based on having to wait until a proposal comes before us. So we haven't really been initiating anything, but we've been reacting to new construction proposals.
So at the current time, as far as the town is concerned, what we consider to be major traffic intersection problems, there aren't any proposed solutions to them that might appear on the warrant?
Not that I know of. There's nothing immediate. We do have, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of work done by the town engineering department and consultants and so on. We do have a lot of basic information that will go a long way toward solving some of these problems, but the big problem now is money. It's just not there.
How about state or local agencies? Bert's talked about state or federal. Bert's talked about the Route 3A possibilities. How about Route 3, or is there was some talk about federal money being available for Middlesex Turnpike?
My understanding now is that the availability of federal funds is almost nil. There just will not be the federal funding that we've been talking about in the last few years. We did have a commitment from the state to reconstruct most of the length of Middlesex Turnpike in Burlington, but of course that did not get through the major engineering funds did not get through town meeting, so we have lost about half of that funding, and we do have funding through state DPW for the portion from Adams Street in Lexington up to the Lexington Street and Mall Road. But that is probably the end of it. I don't think we'll be getting more money than that.
Do you have something on that, Bert?
Yes, regarding state aid, last year, at the end of last year, the state instituted an economic development fund where cities and towns could apply for state aid to be used for the reconstruction or development of streets where business and industry were going to relocate or locate, thereby causing a hardship on that community as far as traffic problems are concerned. We found out about it after the first of the year. We were one of the first cities or towns to apply for it. We got a favorable response within the past couple of weeks, and we listed the streets, the Cambridge Street end of Mountain Road, and also portions of Blanchard Road and Muller Road for state aid. So we are waiting to hear more on that, and if we receive those funds, we certainly will use them. As Frank knows, there's been developers before the planning board that want to put up buildings on Mountain Road, so we utilize those funds.
Mm-hmm. I've got kind of a loaded question for either Bert or Frank, Mr. Baxter, or Mr. Kelly. There's been some major reconstruction by the phone company up on the junction of Route 3A, and Bedford Street. Why isn't it possible for this work to be done between the hours of, say, 11 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning? Certainly, the amount of disruption up there at the moment is just unbelievable.
I'd have to leave that for Bert, since it's basically a policing problem.
Well, the phone company came before us with the permits and also diagnosed what plans they had and what they wanted done. It was ultimately broke down into 3 phases. One would be from the corner of Bedford Street up towards the post office to the telephone building. That would be phase number 1. The second phase would be crossing of Cambridge Street, which necessitated making some detours. What we did, we instructed the phone company that they would pay for all of the police details. The detouring would be done to have the least amount of impact on the residents of Burlington going and coming from work. Therefore, it was done on a Friday and Saturday as opposed to a Monday morning and going Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. To address your question on why it couldn't be done 11 o'clock at night, the Cambridge Street portion, where they're crossing the Cambridge Street, entails a lot of handwork as opposed to just digging with large machines and filling in with concrete, because there are electrical conduits, there's sewerage, main water lines for the town running under Cambridge Street. There are also portions of ledge that are, I guess, are an outgrowth or whatever from Simon's Park, where the Little League field is. So that to do the work at night would have been almost impossible. But we did ask that question of the phone company, and they just didn't think it was feasible.
Okay. I'd like to go back to Mr. Baxter and ask what impact you feel that the new Marriott project, a very large project, is going to have on traffic, and what type of arrangements have we extracted from them relative to off-site improvements?
Well, Marriott Hotel, as you know, it's on a site that is located adjacent to Route 3A at the far end of Mall Road from the mall itself. When the hotel was first proposed as part of the Burlington Woods development, we felt that it was a very desirable one because we in Burlington haven't had what we'd call a first-class hotel, a semi-convention or business meeting type of hotel. We felt that it would definitely complement the area. We then approached the question of impact. One thing about the hotel is the traffic pattern, as far as time is concerned, is quite different from the traffic pattern and timing of the office traffic in the commercial area. Their traffic tends to be going in the opposite direction of the office traffic. In the morning, the people are leaving the hotel, they're checking out. They presumably would be going down Mall Road, Cambridge Street to the intersection and out onto 128. And the reverse would be true at night. They'd be coming in to check in when traffic was going out. So we felt that would, to a great extent, mitigate the impact of the traffic. What we did do under site plan approval was we required them to, first of all, pay for a traffic study and proposals on what would have to be done to Mall Road and to South Bedford Street. And they are reconstructing Mall Road to a 5-lane roadway at Cambridge Street. They have rebuilt and participated in rebuilding South Bedford Street to a 4-lane roadway, the installation of traffic signals and so on. So we feel that the construction, which has to be completed at the same time as the hotel is being completed, that they have taken care of their total impact, assuming that all the projections are correct, and at their cost, no cost to the town.
I'd like to go to Mrs. Hartley. What are businesses' concerns relative to the traffic problem? Your group has been very active and has taken this on as a major issue. What are your major concerns?
Our major concerns are that we get employees to and from work in a reasonable amount of time, in an orderly fashion, and with a minimum number of accidents. We are particularly concerned about the fact that there were 277 accidents on the Middlesex Turnpike in 1980 and 395 on Cambridge Street. And we feel that it's only a matter of time before someone is killed. More importantly, even, we're concerned about safety for everyone who uses the Middlesex Turnpike and who depends upon it. Should there be a traffic blockage, as there was in the recent blizzard, or in any peak traffic hour, a fire truck simply could not get through to a resident who lived up near Route 62 or a police car in the case of an accident, or in a medical emergency you could not get an ambulance through. There are too many people who depend upon the Middlesex Turnpike, and it is simply a two-lane road and inadequate to service those people.
Okay. What is business doing themselves to attempt to deal with the problem?
Well, business through the Burlington Industrial Traffic Staff, which is abbreviated to BITS, has raised $100,000 for design planning for improvements to the Middlesex Turnpike. The town of Burlington could not find the money for this design planning, and so we have all contributed together to make this happen. We have done other things to ameliorate the traffic situation. We have flexible work hours within the community, and particularly within New England Executive Park, which I represent. We have even gone to flex time at Christmas when the traffic at the mall is so extreme, where people can come and go at any time. We have worked with other businesses in the community to cooperate with ride-sharing programs and to sponsor a government program called Caravan for van pooling. And we have a committee that is made up of people from area businesses, from the Laney Clinic and from the North Suburban Chamber of Commerce, which is called an MBTA task force, which has surveyed the businesses in the area. 57 of them have been involved and studied public transportation routes and have made suggestions for improving those routes and those schedules.
In your view, or in your group's view, has the town been responsive to industry's needs? I mean, we've made efforts to bring industry to the town. We have accommodated them to a certain extent. In your group's view, has the town been responsive?
There are certain individuals who have been very responsive, but I think that the town as a whole has to take a stronger leadership in educating the people as to the importance of having these traffic improvements become preventive programs rather than coming after the fact when traffic is completely out of control, as it is in a situation such as Woburn. And we think that they have to take leadership in the area of not letting a small, very vocal minority sway them in their efforts to determine what is best for the town.
Okay, I'd like to go to Mr. Strahan and ask him what the residents' chief
I'm the
concern
small
is.
minority, the vocal minority representative. What was the question, Phil?
What are the concerns of the residents relative to?
Residents have many concerns. Before I bring that up, I'd like to comment on Mrs. Hartley's comment a little bit, and it's not directly at you, Jody. I think you're a fine person. It's directed at the group themselves. The industry has said we have a lot of concerns in the area, and I believe they have concerns. But yet, what you have to look at is the overall picture, and this is what we're looking at. Industry, and correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be dumping more traffic on the Middlesex Turnpike right up across the line from Burlington, right in Billerica. We were discussing that just before the broadcast today, and it's going to be a large industrial area. I don't know, Frank could probably comment as far as the square footage, but it's going to be a big area, a large area, and I believe you said it's going to be a third of the present industrial park we have right now. But that's going to empty on the Middlesex Turnpike. So when industry says they're concerned, you kind of have to look forward a little bit and say, well, how concerned are you if you're going to dump more traffic on the highway that we currently have right now? Safety is a factor. They mentioned safety. That's not going to help the safety problem. That's going to create even a bigger problem. But so these are the things that the residents are concerned with. Their concern is what is down the road in industry's mind. What are their long-range plans? What are they going to be building so that the towns of combined towns of Bedford, Burlington, and Billerica can make their plans and see what's facing it.
So
Not
that
when it
was
happens.
my next question, then you don't feel that it's our problem alone. We have just a few minutes left. If
Unfortunately, we're just getting to my comments.
Okay, I'm going to go right to you again, Mr. Strahan, and ask you whether or not you're pleased. You've been involved in a combined effort, your group with Mrs. Hartley's group, in conjunction with Frank's planning board and the selectmen. Are you pleased with the 25% completed part of the design study?
We have seen it, and we think it's a good plan. You're going to be making curb definitions and hopefully moving traffic a little bit smoother than it's moving now. But I think what we got to look at is the long-range plan. Yes, we are in agreement with that. But what else can industry do? What can they do to alleviate their own traffic problem? There are 6 curb cuts right now on the southbound side of Middlesex Turnpike, emptying right on the turnpike themselves. Maybe these could be closed off and exit through 2nd Ave, 3rd Ave, or 4th Ave, wherever they might be located. But those are creating a problem. I'm referring to places like Inforex, where there's direct access from their parking lot. So there are 6 of those parking lots right now emptying onto the turnpike. There's also a feasibility going of putting a road in back of Industry, emptying it onto Route 3 or up near the exits and entrances of Route 3 up in the Bedford area. These are things that we're wondering, is Industry looking into this? Or is it just wide that turnpike as much as we can so that the traffic can flow smoothly? And we don't think that might be the only solution.
There has been some talk that the main area of concern for your group certainly is the Middlesex Turnpike, but secondarily, the MTIA is also concerned about access to the landlocked land.
That's true. That's right.
Interested in preventing access?
Well, it's been the feeling of a large portion of the group. Yeah, we would like to see it at this time stopped from being entered into, because we just feel it's going to create additional problems that we already have. This is a concern. And I guess it's not just the concern of this group, but a concern of many of the residents in town, is has Burlington grown now big enough? Should we stop? Should we just sit back and let's wait and see what happens with what we have? Or should we just keep building on every parcel in town? And I think this is what the residents in town all over are concerned with, because it's creating problems all over. And as far as the tax base concern with Industry, are they paying really that much into the town? The figures have been between 40-45%. Most of us figure it should be 50 to 60% with the amount of industry we have in town. And they'll put a proposal before town meeting and before the planning board telling you how much taxes that this building or this is going to be paying into the town, and yet we go to court and fight over tax assessments, and we've had many of them within the industrial park themselves. So that, everything is not as rosy as it may appear to be when a building is being proposed and going to go up. But I think that we're also, as I mentioned earlier, very concerned with this construction that's going to take place in Billerica. Basically, Burlington has nothing to say about it, and yet we're going to suffer from all the traffic.
Okay. One final question, and we are almost out of time, and I'd like to address this to Mr. Baxter. Do you feel that the 2.5%, or the Proposition 2.5% budget restriction is going to force a no or slow growth policy in Burlington?
It'll definitely have an impact on it, but I don't see it as initiating a no growth policy. No.
Not a forced no growth.
No. I don't.
Mrs. Hartley, just maybe 30 seconds.
We have 1 second. I'd like to say that the responsibility for the growth in the zoning in the town does not rest solely with Industry. It's not really in our hands. The town, the responsibility for the zoning goes with the town, and we should work hand in hand to have an infrastructure that goes with the zoning. Where the land is zoned, we have not exceeded the building plan that the town has allowed us.
Okay,
So we
and
should
if
be
we could
working
have
together.
one final comment from Mr.
Just,
Chairman.
I'd like to ask Jody, if you know, the new area that's being developed in Billerica, how many automobiles do they figure is going to be accommodated in that area?
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar.
Okay. Well, I think we'll have to end it on that note,
Frank?
a little note of uncertainty. That brings today's program to a conclusion. I'd like to thank our guests, Albert Kelly, Board of Selectmen, Chairman of the Planning Board, Frank Baxter, Mrs. Jody Hartley from BITS, and Mr. Howard Strahan from MTIA. Next week's issue is part number 3, and that's on the budget. Thank you and good day.